With over 160 million units sold, the PlayStation 2 isn't just the best-selling console of all time. It's a cultural phenomenon that completely redefined gaming. So, how did this simple black box conquer the world? Well, it wasn't just luck. It was a perfect storm of revolutionary tech, an unbeatable library of games, and one key feature that, for millions of people, had nothing to do with gaming at all. This is the story of how the PS2 took over the living room and built a legacy that still echoes today. It was the right machine at the right time, with the perfect strategy for total domination, and it all started in the massive shadow of its older brother. To really get the scale of the PlayStation 2's victory, you have to rewind to the turn of the millennium, the year 2000. The world was cautiously stepping into a new century, buzzing with a mix of tech optimism and Y2K anxiety. And in the world of video games, one name ruled them all: Sony. The original PlayStation was a seismic event. It didn't just win the console war, it redrew the whole map. By embracing third-party developers, using the massive storage of CDs, and marketing itself as cool, sophisticated entertainment, not a toy, Sony had made video games a mainstream cultural force. The PlayStation became the heart of the living room for a whole generation. It gave us sprawling cinematic RPGs like Final Fantasy VII, redefined stealth with Metal Gear Solid, and made Resident Evil a household name. It sold over 102 million units, a completely unheard-of number back then, creating a huge, loyal fan base that was dying to see what Sony would do next. The pressure was on, and the competition was heating up. Sega, still smarting from the failure of the Saturn, came out swinging in 1999 with the Dreamcast. It was a technological marvel for its time, a sleek machine with built-in online play right out of the box. It was the first true next-gen console of its era, and for a hot minute it looked like Sega had a real shot. Meanwhile, two other giants were getting ready to jump in. Nintendo was prepping the GameCube, and a new challenger was coming from the PC world, Microsoft, armed with the beastly Xbox. The stage was set for the biggest console war anyone had ever seen. But Sony had an ace up its sleeve. While everyone else was focused on polygon counts and spec sheets, Sony was planning a move that was as simple as it was brilliant. They weren't just selling a games console. They were selling the future of home entertainment, and they were about to sneak it into millions of homes inside a Trojan horse. On March 4, 2000, the PlayStation 2 launched in Japan, and the reaction was pure hysteria. Lines stretched for blocks, people queued for days. It hit North America that October for $299. Now, that price tag, which is over $500 in today's money, was steep for a game console. But here's the genius part of Sony's plan. The PlayStation 2 wasn't just a game console. It was also a full-featured DVD player. It's hard to overstate how huge this was. DVDs were the hot new thing, a massive leap in quality over old VHS tapes. But in 2000, standalone DVD players were still a luxury. A decent one could easily cost you $200, $300, even $400. Sony's masterstroke was making the PS2 one of the most affordable and attractive DVD players you could buy. Suddenly, the conversation at the dinner table was different. That $299 price wasn't just for a toy for the kids. It was an investment for the whole family. It was how you were going to watch the latest Hollywood blockbusters in crystal-clear quality. In fact, during the Japanese launch, one of the best-selling games wasn't a game at all. It was the DVD of The Matrix. This single feature turned the PS2 from a niche device into an essential piece of the living room. It was the perfect Trojan horse, getting Sony's gaming platform into homes that might have never bought a console otherwise. Microsoft's Xbox could play DVDs, sure, but there was a greedy catch. You had to shell out extra money for a separate DVD playback kit. And Nintendo's GameCube, with its weird little mini-discs, couldn't play them at all. This gave Sony a massive, immediate head start with the average consumer. Parents, couples, and casual buyers saw the PS2 not just as a powerful gaming machine, but as a smart two-for-one deal. This strategy didn't just give the PS2 a foothold. It helped speed up the adoption of the DVD format itself. While its rivals were arguing about frame rates, Sony was offering real, everyday value. It was a lesson they'd learned with the original PlayStation doubling as a CD player, but with the PS2, they perfected it. While the DVD player got the PS2 in the door, the hardware inside that sleek black box was a different beast entirely. Sony built a machine with a unique, powerful, and famously complex architecture, all built around a processor with a name that was pure marketing genius: the Emotion Engine. This was a custom 300 MHz CPU, and Sony made some seriously grand promises about it, claiming it could render graphics so realistic they would evoke actual emotional responses. It was designed for parallel processing, meaning it had a main CPU core working alongside two powerful vector processing units. These VPUs were monsters at the kind of math needed for complex 3D models and lighting. On paper, this meant the PS2 could push a staggering number of polygons. Sony claimed up to 75 million per second, a number that blew its competitors away. Paired with this was the graphic synthesizer, a GPU that could render graphics and textures at blazing speeds. This unique hardware gave developers the tools to create effects that were absolutely jaw-dropping at the time. Think of the dense atmospheric fog in Silent Hill 2. It wasn't just a trick to hide pop-in anymore, it was a living part of the environment. Or think of the mind-blowing rain effects on the tanker in Metal Gear Solid 2, an effect so advanced it ran at a silky smooth 60 frames per second on the PS2, while the port to the more powerful Xbox had to be locked at 30. But all that power had a price. The system was notoriously hard to program for. Early on, a lot of developers struggled to tap into its real potential, which is why many launch titles didn't look much better than Dreamcast games. It took time for developers to really learn the hardware's quirks, but once they did, the results were spectacular. Games like God of War 2 and Shadow of the Colossus, released years into the console's life, pushed the system to its absolute limits, delivering visuals many thought were impossible on the aging machine. The innovation wasn't just on the inside. Sony also introduced the DualShock 2 controller. It was more of an evolution than a revolution, but it had one key improvement: pressure-sensitive buttons. Every button, except Start, Select, and the stick clicks, could detect 255 different levels of pressure. This opened up a whole new world of subtle control. In Gran Turismo, you could gently feather the gas. In Metal Gear Solid 3, you could raise your weapon with a light touch, then press harder to fire. It was a level of precision that became the new standard. A console is just a plastic box without games, and this is where the PlayStation 2 went from a success to an absolute legend. Its library of over 3,800 titles is arguably the greatest and most diverse in gaming history. It was a catalog that had something for everyone, from huge blockbusters to weird, quirky experiments. The launch lineup in North America on October 26, 2000 was, let's be honest, a little shaky. Games like Ridge Racer 5 and Tekken Tag Tournament were fine, but they felt more like HD versions of PS1 games than a true next-gen leap. But it didn't take long for the system to find its groove and for the classics to start showing up. 2001 was the year everything changed. The PS2's identity started to form, thanks to a string of iconic games that showed off its true power. Capcom unleashed Devil May Cry, a game that basically invented the stylish action genre with its fast-paced, combo-heavy combat and gothic cool. It was pure adrenaline and looked like nothing else out there. Then came the heavyweights. Konami delivered Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, one of the most hyped sequels of all time. It was a cinematic masterpiece that pushed video game storytelling to its limits with a wild, postmodern plot and stunning cutscenes. The attention to detail, from ice cubes melting in a glass to individually rendered raindrops, was just staggering. Square brought its biggest franchise to the new hardware with Final Fantasy X. This was a massive leap for JRPGs. It was the first game in the series with voice acting, bringing its emotional story to life like never before. The world was now fully 3D, creating a beautiful, vibrant world that felt incredible to explore. And then there was Rockstar Games. With Grand Theft Auto 3, they didn't just make a hit game, they changed the language of gaming forever. They took the series from a top-down view into a fully realized 3D open-world city. Liberty City was a living, breathing sandbox of crime and chaos. The freedom it gave you was unreal. You could follow the story, or just spend hours stealing cars and causing trouble. GTA 3 created a whole new genre that would dominate the industry, and it happened first, exclusively, on the PlayStation 2. If 2001 was the year the PS2 found its footing, the years that followed were its absolute golden age. This was a period of just relentless quality, where developers who were now masters of the hardware unleashed a flood of creativity. Rockstar, not happy with changing the industry just once, did it again. First with Grand Theft Auto Vice City in 2002, which polished the open-world formula and soaked it in 80s neon nostalgia. It had a better story, a stronger main character, and maybe the best licensed soundtrack ever. Then, in 2004, came Grand Theft Auto, San Andreas. The scale of this game was just insane. It wasn't one city, it was an entire state. It added RPG elements, gang warfare, and so much more. San Andreas became the best-selling game on the console, a cultural icon that defined the mid-2000s. But the PS2 was more than just the GTA machine. Sony's own studios were creating a whole roster of exclusive mascots. Naughty Dog of Crash Bandicoot fame gave us the platforming world of Jak and Daxter. Insomniac Games created Ratchet and Clank, a perfect blend of platforming and shooting with ridiculously inventive weapons. Sucker Punch delivered Sly Cooper, a slick, cel-shaded stealth platformer. These series were the backbone of the PS2's first-party lineup. This era also gave us some of the most legendary and brutal action games ever. In 2005, Sony Santa Monica unleashed God of War. Its visceral combat, incredible sense of scale, and its unforgettable anti-hero Kratos set a new bar for the whole genre. It was a bloody cinematic and technical masterpiece. And yet, the PS2 still had room for quieter, more artistic games. Team ICO delivered two of the most influential games ever made. ICO was a minimalist adventure that created a powerful emotional bond through gameplay, not words. Its spiritual successor, Shadow of the Colossus, was a masterpiece of design, pitting you against 16 majestic giants in a vast, lonely world. It was epic, melancholic, and a true piece of interactive art. From Okami and Katamari Damacy to Silent Hill 2 and Persona 4, the library was an embarrassment of riches. There was something for everyone, and the sheer volume of high-quality exclusives gave it an unbeatable edge. Beyond the DVD player and the killer games, two other things propped up the PlayStation 2's success: its respect for the past and its wild experiments with the future. The first was backwards compatibility. This seems standard now, but in 2000 it was a game-changer. The PS2 could play almost every single original PlayStation game. Sony pulled this off by basically putting the original PlayStation's main chip inside the PS2, which ensured near-perfect compatibility. You can't overstate how valuable this was. It meant that on day one, the PS2 launched with a library of over 1,000 proven hits. If you'd spent years building your PS1 collection, you could upgrade without losing your favorite games. It rewarded loyalty and made the jump to a new generation feel seamless. For anyone on the fence between a PS2 and a Dreamcast, this was often the deciding factor. It was a powerful message to gamers that Sony valued their investment. But Sony wasn't just looking backward. They were also trying out new ways to play. The PS2 introduced a bunch of innovative accessories that brought in people who weren't traditional gamers. The biggest was the iToy. Released in 2003, it was a simple webcam that put you on the screen, letting you interact with games using motion. It was a precursor to things like the Kinect and the Wii. Games like iToy Play were simple, fun, and a massive hit at parties. And then there was SingStar. Bundled with two microphones, this series turned the PS2 into a full-on karaoke machine. It became a social phenomenon, especially in Europe. Along with games like Guitar Hero, which exploded into a cultural force on the PS2, these accessories broadened the very definition of a video game. They brought in a more casual crowd, the same people who might have bought the console as a DVD player but stayed for the party games. These innovations, plus the safety net of backwards compatibility, made the PS2 the complete package. What's maybe most remarkable about the PS2's story is just how long it lasted. This wasn't a console with a 5-year life cycle. The PS2's reign was incredibly long, thanks to a brilliant strategy that kept it relevant for over a decade. Sony didn't officially stop making the console until January 2013, nearly 13 years after it first came out, and well into the life of the PlayStation 3. A key part of this was smart, aggressive price drops. After launching at $299, Sony periodically slashed the price to keep sales going. In 2002, the price dropped to a much more attractive $199, putting it way below the competition and opening the floodgates for a new wave of buyers. The price kept falling over the years, eventually making it an impulse buy for many families. The real masterstroke came in 2004 with the redesigned slimline model. This new PS2 was way smaller, lighter, and quieter. It also had a built-in Ethernet port, making it easier to play online. The Slim was a sleek redesign that gave the console a second life. It was cheaper to make, so Sony could sell it for less, and its tiny size meant it could fit anywhere. The mix of a low price and a massive library of classic games made the PS2 an incredible deal, even after the PS3 came out in 2006. For years, the PS2 actually outsold its much more powerful successor. It became the perfect console for families on a budget or for gamers who wanted to catch up on all the classics they had missed. Developers kept making games for it well into the late 2000s. The last official game, Pro Evolution Soccer 2014, was released in late 2013, 1 week before the PlayStation 4 launched. That ridiculously long lifespan is what cemented its place in the hearts of millions and pushed its sales record into untouchable territory. The story of the PlayStation 2 is one of perfect execution. It wasn't just one thing, but a flawless combination of smart decisions that turned a piece of hardware into a cultural icon. It launched at the perfect moment, using the DVD boom to become an essential part of the living room. It was powered by ambitious tech that, in the right hands, produced incredible results. It honored its past with backwards compatibility, telling millions of fans that their game libraries were safe. And most importantly, it was home to a library of games so incredible in its quality and variety that it may never be equaled. From game changers like Grand Theft Auto 3 and epics like Metal Gear Solid 2, to artistic masterpieces like Shadow of the Colossus, and action titans like God of War, the PS2 was the undisputed king of content. Its amazing longevity, driven by smart redesigns and price drops, meant its influence stretched across multiple generations, pushing it to over 160 million units sold and making it the best-selling console in history. The PlayStation 2 didn't just win a console war, it permanently changed how the world saw video games. Its legacy is in every open-world game we play today, every cinematic story a game tries to tell, and in the DNA of the very industry it helped build. But what about you? What are your favorite PlayStation 2 memories? Was it taking down your first Colossus, cruising the streets of Vice City, or just staying up all night with friends playing SingStar? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like and subscribe for more stories from gaming history.